All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wapiti Wednesday Live Q&A for July 16th. So now, since it's been a month since we've had this because of me traveling and the birthday of our great country, I kind of was like, what am I going to do? So I thought about this, and I actually, you're gonna you're gonna see that I kind of put just a little bit of an effort into this. So we're gonna kind of go a lot of different directions tonight on this, and we're gonna hit a lot of the calling controversies. Basically, kind of the topic tonight is, when does calling help and when does it actually hurt your hunt? It was kind of interesting. I was doing a lesson last night with a brand new student. So, and he was talking about that. He's been calling for a little bit. He's called in elk, but there's really only one time that he felt that he had a actual conversation with a bull. That the bull was responding to what he was doing, and he was kind of controlling the situation. And I said, man, that's a lot of fun when that can happen. The crazy thing was, we're sitting there halfway through, and all of a sudden he goes, hey, Michael, normally when I do something like this, people kind of want to know how I found them. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed that you found your way to me through one of the social media platforms. No, he found his way to me through Chat GPT. AI. He went into AI and said, this is what I'm doing. I've been elk hunting. I have this app. Is there anybody out there that can do a one-on-one, that can listen to me and critique and this and that? And I was like,
Yay.
that is really cool.
Yeah, that's really good.
So, so if you see anybody on social media going, man, I really want to get into elk calling, they're like, best thing to do is just ask Chat GPT where to start.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Jason, to respond to your email, no, there was not one from January 2nd because I was up in the mountains getting ready to enjoy the 4th. And there wasn't one the week before that, or 2 weeks before that, because I was out of town.
Copy.
So,
Thank you.
so you haven't missed anything. So we're going to make up for it tonight with this one. So we
Cool.
got a long ways to go, short time to get there. Let's get going. Okay. When does calling actually help your hunt? So early season calling is really, really effective because preseason, that early season, you get bulls that are rounding up their cows. You also get groups that are still established in their pecking order. So bulls are very responsive to calls, late August through kind of, they say, this middle of September. I mean, to me, middle of September, 10th, 12th. So it's not really, the 15th. It's kind of that time frame there. So the other thing too is, you also have bulls that have gathered up their cows and have headed into their breeding zones, and they just want to know who's around. Hey, who's out there? So vice versa is, you get those bulls that move into those areas. They don't want to know who's around. They just want to be quiet, but also too, they don't want any bulls getting too close, so they can be really territorial and defensive on those cows. So, location bugles, dusk to dawn or dawn to dusk. Also, too, nighttime bugling is really effective because remember, that first part of the season is pretty hot, so the elk can tend to be more active at the nighttime, and so that's where night bugling is a good advantage too, that early part of the season. Then you've already eliminated part of the challenge of locating elk. So once you have them located, recorded on your GPS, on X, base map, whatever you do, mark it so that way you know exactly where you're going the next morning. If you want, you can actually keep going around and locate a few bulls and mark different places. Me, typically though, once I have a bull located, that's it. I'm done fishing for the night. I'm ready to go get some sleep. So, Also, too early season, calling pressure is typically lower because there hasn't been those bull to human interactions. So they're not on guard as much. So, okay. Second place where it helps, thick timber situations. So I'm talking thick enough where visibility is limited to 40 yards max. So calling is essential for calling elk into shooting range in these areas. You'll hear a lot of times from people that hunt rosies over in the coastals. It's so stinking thick. They're like, my max shooting range is maybe 15 yards. It's tight. So thick timber is really your best friend. I love calling elk in thick timbers because you can get away with so much in thick timber because you don't have an elk standing out there at 200 yards being able to see your movement. So now, dark timber hunting requires different calling strategies than open country because open country, you really have to be aware of what's behind you and how well you're concealed. Can that elk see where the sound is coming from 300-400 yards away? Or how close? So when you're in heavier timber, you don't have to think of that as much because you know that bull's not going to be able to step out on the opposite ridge line and look over to where you are and go, I see you two-legged freak. I'm not coming over there. You're ridiculous. So that's where that dark timber is an advantage. The other thing that's nice too is if you're a solo hunter, dark timber is a huge advantage for solo hunting because you can use that thick timber. Now with the call and move that we've talked about in solo hunting, you only have to move 20 yards. I mean, you have a 40-yard window. If 40 yard is your max effective range, you call, move up 20 yards. Man, if that dude comes out in your 40-yard opening, now you're only 20 yards from him. It makes it a lot easier as a solo hunter. Soft, low audible sounds. So once you've done your locating, your soft, subtle cow sounds and your subtle bull sounds work better than aggressive bugles within the thick timber. And here's why. Because a bull is not going to come rushing in to another aggressive sounding bull if he cannot see that bull from a distance. He's not going to come into a situation where as soon as he comes into that opening, he can get gored. So it's almost like we've talked about a bull coming from the shadow into the sunlight or from shadow, sunlight back to shadow. It takes a minute for his eyes. So basically, when you're calling in dark timber, this is where your setup is the most critical about being on that same elevation or slightly above, slightly below, depending on your thermals, is you want to have an even playing field to where that bull feels comfortable. If you have the advantage, he ain't coming. He's not going to do it. Remember, his job is to survive. And he does know that during the rut that bulls do get gored, poked, die, all kinds of stuff. So use terrain features like ridges and draws to amplify sound naturally. So getting up on top of a ridge, your sound actually carries a little bit more. Down by a creek, it's pretty tough because you have the sound of the creek, which is really hard to hear incoming and also hear responses. Hey, look, consider the call and move technique. Never call from your shooting position. I think we just talked about that in dark timber, the call and move, stick and move, the old boxing analogy. So, okay, solo hunting advantages. When hunting alone, calling actually can be effective, more effective than trying to pattern or ambush elk through spot and stalk methods. And honestly, you can also do a combo of these. You can spot, get a game plan, go to the ambush spot and call. So you can, as a solo hunter, you can kind of combine these different things into a different style hunt. But calling is solo. It's so nice because you're the only one moving. You're the only one setting up. You don't have to worry about setting up a shooter and setting up this. You know, you have the flexibility that you don't have to look at somebody and go, what do you think? should we do this or should we do that? Man, it's all on you. The freedom of it is so nice. And in fact, I don't know how many times over the years that I still love to just get out one on one. And I don't know how many times that I will go out on a solo hunt and end up calling in a stud of a bull, and I just can't get a shot because of brush or something. I mean, it just doesn't work out. And I don't know how many times that I will get back to camp and those guys will be like, "Oh, what did you get into?" Because they know what my solo hunts are like. And then those guys are always like, "Cool. Are we going back in there tomorrow?" And I'm like, "No, because you guys just want to go in and kill that bull that I just called it." And they're like, "Well, yeah, obviously you had your chance. You couldn't get it done. Let somebody else have a crack." And I'm like, "You guys are a-holes." So, okay. So solo hunters can effectively run and gun. That's what I was talking about, where you have the freedom to move. You can actually cover ground as a single, and your freedom of shooting and shifting and changing as the thermals go is a lot easier as a solo than it is as a tandem or a triple. So also too, calling kind of brings, as long as you're using the topography and the vegetation to your advantage, calling will bring those elk to a predetermined shooting range, which helps you as a shooter. That's why being a solo hunter up in the thicker timber is a huge advantage. It's really tough on wide open spaces to be a solo hunter because there's too many variables and too many different directions they can go. So, okay. Hey, look, audience question. Those of you that are in tonight in the live discussion, any of you guys solo hunt? Okay, Greg, what's your go-to calling sequence when you're alone?
Location is first, and just to find if there's anything there, anything that's vocal. And if I do hear something, then I move towards it, but then I'm cow calling. I try to use cow calling quite a bit until I get close. If
What
I
would you
don't,
what would you define as close?
under 100,
Oh, okay, right on top. Okay.
if I don't get any kind of a response to the location bugle, then I'm kind of going with how the wind's in my favor and get up another 50, 7,500 yards and locate bugle again.
Okay.
That's what I do.
So once you have a bull located and you moved in, do you stay with the cow calling or do
Well,
you
that's
just
one of
kind
my
of
questions. Yeah, I've got three questions for tonight. One was you have a bull bugling and he's getting close. Do I stay with a cow call? Do I go to a bugle? Or do I just mimic? I remember we talked about this, but I couldn't remember and I couldn't find it back in my notes.
so okay. Yes, yes, and yes.
So,
Meaning whatever sound you were doing to get him to come in,
yeah,
that's the sound you're going to stay with. So if it was cow calls that are bringing him, you're going to stay with cow calls. If it was mimicking him that was bringing him in, stay with mimicking. If it's bull sounds, stay with bull sounds.
yeah,
So also too, if he's on his way in, and this is the hardest thing for a lot of people, if he breaks that 100-yard mark and he's coming, you don't need to make another sound. But that's the hardest thing for a lot of us to do because we think, oh, you know what? The more sounds that I make, the more excited he's going to get and the faster he's going to come in.
yeah. And that doesn't
No,
work.
no.
More
He's
times than not, it doesn't work.
he's going to come in when he's going to come in.
Yeah.
So, and I think we may actually touch on that a little bit more further in the program when we get to when calling hurts your hunt. That may be a little foreshadowing right there. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's all in this. So, okay.
We're
Okay.
good.
Good on that one for now.
Yes.
Okay. Optimal wind and thermal conditions. So, dramatically increases when you understand and use thermals. Remember, we've talked about the diurnal thermals, and we've also talked about how to um, use those wind patterns, use those thermals to our advantage. Basically in our setups, to where we're on the same elevation of that bull. Because if we're on the same elevation, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter if the thermals are about ready to switch because the thermals are either going up or down. We're on the same level. We don't have to worry about it. So, um, if you have a steady thermal, your calling's going to drift better, but also too your scent's going to stay in one direction, so it's more controllable. When you start getting into kind of a crosswind or swirly wind, that's when it's tough because one, your scent's swirling all around, but your sound also swirls around too, which makes it hard for those elk to really pinpoint where that sound is coming from. So then if you get really still air, not much wind movement at all, man, your sound actually amplifies a lot more on those. That's why if you notice those cool, quiet mornings when the air is just calm, man, how your call just really expands and just gets out there. As the heat of the day and it warms up, that air gets heavier and it just doesn't expand as much. So
I've been impressed with the elk when you get one that maybe you were calling and you got them to come to where you can see them, but they'll turn and they'll look exactly where the sound was coming from, even though they can't see you.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm amazed that they can figure out from a distance where that's coming from.
Oh, I've had them come from 5, 6, 700 yards out to the very, very bush that I called from.
Yeah.
And it's like, how the heck do you do that? Because I try to do the same thing to you guys, and I'm like, I think I'm in the area, and it's not even close, and they can just do it within a few feet. So, okay, how do you guys adjust your calling strategy, not only based on wind direction, but also the amount of wind?
Good question. I don't.
We've talked about part of that before.
You'd think with more wind, you'd want to call louder, but I don't think that's right.
You can, but really the best thing to do is if you get into a high wind situation, find pockets that are out of the wind because that's where the elk are going to go. They're going to seek shelter out of that wind. Because remember, they use their nose, their eyes, and their ears for survival. Well, when the wind is blowing pretty heavily, that messes with their ears. They can't hear much approaching through the grass because everything's making a bunch of noise. They can't see because those blades of grass are moving. They can't lock in on movement because everything's moving. So that's why in high wind situation, those elk are going to move to pockets or move to areas where they get out of that heavier wind. Now, you don't necessarily have to go into the same area they're at. You can be right on the edge where you're still in the wind and call into that calmer area. So,
Makes
okay.
sense.
All right. And fifth and final, low pressure areas. Imagine that, guys. Calling benefits your hunting when you're hunting in low pressured areas. Remote locations where elk haven't been educated, which, yes, I threw that in there. By hunting pressure, calling can be incredibly effective. You guys know how I feel about educated. Elk have a 3-day reset on their memory, but hunting pressure, they do respond to hunting pressure if there's a lot of people out there. So it's not that they're educated, they are responding to the pressure and they're diving into pockets and secluded places where the pressure is going to be less. So that is why you always have to have within your hunt area, you have to have an escape zone. that is a zone that you have found, an area that you have found that elk can go to when the hunting pressure gets high. It's going to be an area that is maybe tough to get to, or it could be an area that if you hunt the area enough and you maybe you're driving somewhere and you see an elk in a random spot and it's like, man, that's an odd spot to see an elk. Why is that elk there? Is that one of those spots that are out of the way, that is outside the box? Is it a spot that a lot of people just drive right by because they don't think, man, there can't be any elk there. So low pressure areas, wilderness areas, difficult access zones. Bulls in these areas still exhibit natural behaviors and calling responses just because they haven't been called to a bunch. But the other thing with this too is you got to remember it goes to, are you calling like an elk or are you calling like a human? Are you matching your surroundings or are you just doing what we think we want and what they want? And we're just going to stick to this one plan and do it and don't even pay attention to anything around us. So now the nice thing about these lower pressure areas is you can usually get more aggressive with those bulls because the only aggression that they've really had is competition from other bulls. And so that can really increase your aggressive calling techniques and responses. So now success rates typically drop significantly as hunting pressures increase throughout the season, but that's kind of a skewed number because it's going off percentage of harvest, but those numbers are skewed too because you could have two areas and there's 1,000 hunters in one area and 2,000 hunters in the other. The 2,000 hunter area is twice the size of the first area, but they both areas harvest 50 bulls. So the 50 bulls with the 1,000 hunter in the smaller area is going to have a higher success rate than the 2,000 hunter area. But the 2,000 is a larger area and hunters are spread out more. So that's one thing that's kind of misconstrued on the pressure and the success decreasing. So
Seems like more of those 2,000 hunters are in the area I'm at.
you are in a popular area with a lot of non-residents
Yes,
because of the allure of that area. But also too, you have some very good areas there that are outside the norm that a lot of people don't think about.
right. Most of the hunters we encounter are from out of state.
Yes, they
Yeah,
are. And then they focus on three general areas over there. At least that's how it was when I hunted over there.
yeah.
So, and I'm not going to name those areas
No,
here.
I've
You and I
we
know
one or two of them, but
you and I know where those are at. So,
yeah.
okay, what's the most remote area you guys have ever hunted, and how did the elk respond differently?
I'm gonna let somebody else answer first.
Mm. I was hunting a remote area in Colorado, 5 day hunt. I saw one other hunter the whole time. But the animals were pretty quiet. Um, I did have a bull bugling down in a canyon that I decided if I got down there and killed him, I couldn't get him out. So so I didn't go for him.
Knife and fork bull. I've chased those a few times.
Yeah.
Jason, I know you guys go behind gates and
Yeah, the challenge with that is I didn't really know how to call when I was really remote.
okay.
Uh, yeah, but in the last couple of years, definitely learning that. Um, and just knowing when to call, kind of how to call,
Yeah.
game changer.
Yeah, and see, that's what's funny because my backcountry hunting, um, was really before the wolf population really exploded and before the popularity of elk hunting really exploded. I mean, I used to, every year, 7, 8 miles deep. Camp number one was at 7 miles. We would be there for 14 days. Then we'd move to camp number two, which was another mile. Because, yes, even that far back in, they still enforced the 14-day rule on us and made us move. But camp number two was so cool because, God, you would lay there 8 miles back in. You could hear the creek rolling through the canyon, and you would have bulls just screaming within 150 yards of the tent all night long. It sucked. It was horrible. So, okay. When calling hurts your hunt. So, overcalled public lands. Heavy calling pressure on public lands can create it's not necessarily, yeah, I mean, call shy elk. And the reason I say call shy is because a majority of the people out there are doing the same exact thing. They have one approach. They want that aggressive style of calling. They want to have those screaming fests. And they're going to run around the mountains doing that until they find an elk that's in that mindset. Well, the only problem is there's so many bulls that aren't in that mindset or that have been called to that aren't going to give it the time of day. Now imagine you take that same elk and you set up and you start kind of doing a little sequence with some cow calls and you start doing some huffs and grunts and raking. All of a sudden he's like, "Ooh, haven't heard a human do that one before." So you actually you actually get more responses out of those low audible sounds, especially as the popularity of elk hunting increases. I mean, if somebody just wanted to focus on one thing throughout the season, just set up, do 3, 4, 5 cow calls, wait 45 seconds to a minute, repeat the cow calls again, wait 30 to 45 seconds, minute, do it again, but now introduce some huffs and grunts. Wait, do it again, huffs, grunts, some raking, and now you can kind of start going back and forth. You will have an elk crack off, or you will have one sneak in quietly. I can guarantee it. So,
Agreed.
You can guarantee it if there's an elk in the area.
well, I would hope to shout the fact that you were hunting the area that you already figured out that there was elk in the area.
Sure. Mhm.
So, okay. Um, okay. How do you guys know when an area has been overcalled?
No answers, lots of tracks, human tracks. They
You've
don't,
seen
they don't
the
respond to your call.
you've seen the sign of other people there.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the
So,
things I've learned is elk will come out just at dark or just before dark. They'll start responding.
okay. So you see that sign. How do you adjust your calling? What do you do differently? God, don't everybody answer at once.
Well, I was waiting for somebody else, but I would stick with cow calls. Just, I think the safest call is a cow call. I think using a bugle has a higher probability of scaring a bull or having a bull stay quiet.
Okay. So,
I think softly calling is a
aha,
real key in that.
aha, bingo. There you got it. So great, because here's my question. Remember, these are very social, vocal animals. So they've probably adapted and adjusted from the pressure. They've changed the way they're calling. So why not Am I being different than the hordes of people that?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, so yeah.
We've heard that. We've heard that low rumbling.
Yeah. And you're in a high pressured area. So that's how you can adjust your calling. Larry, you hit it on the head. So be different. So okay, wrong timing issues. Calling at the wrong time of day or season can make them harder to hunt later. So it's not making them harder to hunt later. It's more you're probably going to mess up your setup. So, in wrong timing issues, it's not only time of year because post rut a lot of time the post rut the bulls are exhausted. They just want to recover. You got your younger bulls that they're really not bugling much. They are still looking for some of those cows that are coming into a late estrus cycle that they want to breed. So probably post rut's not a time that you really want to do a lot of bugling. You want to focus on your cow sounds, but also too, weather conditions, high barometric pressure days. If that high barometric pressure gets above 29, they just don't respond to calls very well. The other thing too is if you get into an area and you call and it's just dead, you have no echo, stop calling, move out of there. You're not going to get anything to respond that day. So recognize. But also too, wrong timing issues is calling at different times. I guess actually this kind of will fall into the next one of poor execution consequences. So, it's not just bad calling technique, it's poor execution. It's almost best way I can think of it. You're at a gathering, some people you haven't seen in a while. Man, Greg, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while, and man, it's been a little bit rough. My father passed away last week. Really? No kidding. Probably not the proper response of me laughing about your father dying. So, same thing with the elk too. You can say the wrong thing at the wrong time, which just it takes the realism out of your calling. That's why it's really important to understand the different elk vocalizations, the different sounds, and what they mean, so that way you know that you're actually putting the right sequence together to match the situation. So, overcalling, too frequent or too loud. See that foreshadowing? See how we came down to that? So, it actually creates suspicion. So, you could have a bull coming in on a string, and man, you're just trying to speed him up because he's not coming in on your clock, and it's just driving you crazy. You can actually take a bull that's going from trotting in with excitement to slowing down on a slow crawl and really monitoring and watching everything around, which can then turn it into an agonizing situation because not only is he going to take his time coming in, but when he does come in, he's going to be very on guard and really scanning and looking. So
And he's going to work the wind.
he is absolutely. Remember, see you first, smell you, or see you first, hear you second, smell you third. So also too, wrong call for the situation. Aggressive bugle when maybe huffs, grunts, and whines is actually what you needed. That bull, his aggression level was not raised up, but you're trying to force that aggression because you want to get into that scream fest. So match the situation, understanding where you're at, then match that. Poor timing between calls. This is something that we have not talked about. So when you are calling and when you are doing cow sounds, so many people want to me, string them together. The only problem is you get 50, 60 yards out. To you right here, it sounds like me, 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 me. 50, 60 yards out, it sounds meh. It doesn't have separation. So in your mind, you want to, when you're doing herd talk, when you're doing cow sound, in your mind, you almost want to be like you are in slow motion. Now that's over exaggerated. That's what you're thinking in your mind. Because in your mind, if you're thinking normal speed, it's going to come out sped up. If you think in your mind halftime or slow motion, then notice how there's those subtle pauses in between each one. You need those breaks. It's very important to make sure that you have those breaks. And that's, like I said, that is something that we really haven't talked about a lot. So, okay. What's the most common calling mistake you guys see hunters nowadays making?
Over aggressive.
Over aggressive. I would agree with that.
Same routine over and over.
Get in that rhythm of yep, there's no variety, creature of habit. Man, we talked about that on the mountainside last year. So I was talking to Brandon about that, because Brandon really gets in a habit of he's always the same type 3 cow sounds, then a bugle. He gets in that same rut of doing the same thing. There's not a whole lot of variety, which is easy to do. So
Volume.
too much or
Too
not?
loud. Too loud. Not getting the response I want. So I'm just going to yell louder.
Okay, would agree with that. All great answers. How about not understanding the situation that they're in?
For sure.
So I mean, you can go watch YouTube videos right now. In fact, I think I talked about this once. I was watching a group, and they had a bull. They had a bull going, and they were cow calling. All of a sudden, this bull just starts lip balling, and they're like, "Oh man, he's getting fired up. He's getting fired up, and he's getting more aggressive with that lip ball." And then all of a sudden, he just disappears, and they're like, "What the heck?" They're all checking the wind, and they're like, "Did he see us? Did he smell us?" And I'm like, "No, you idiots. He was sitting there asking you, 'Come to me, come to me.' He was getting more forceful, 'Come to me, get over here.' And you guys just stayed right where you're at." So he's like, "You know what? Forget you guys. I'm out of here. I'm tired of dealing with you. I'm bored."
That totally happened to me last year. I didn't know I didn't know that's what the invitation was.
Yeah. Oh, it's lip ball, or you do a cow sound, and a bull hits you with a roundup bugle. I mean, I remember the first time I ever heard the roundup bugle, I was like, "Why are you barking at me? You have no reason to be nervous. Why are you nervous barking? And why are you nervous barking followed by a little whine with 2 or 3 chuckles? You're out of your head, bull. You don't know what you're doing." Well, he kind of did. He was telling me as a cow to come to him. I was the one that didn't know what I was doing.
That's why we're here. To listen.
We're here so that you guys can teach me what I'm not doing.
No, we're here.
Oh,
Yes.
you are here to live vicariously through all the mistakes that I've made on the mountainside. Therefore, you can eliminate all those and enjoy hunting success faster and more frequently.
There we go.
Yours today for $19.99. Order now and we'll double your order. So, all right, hunter magnet effect. So in crowded hunting areas, your calls actually might attract more hunters than elk, creating dangerous situations. Yes, I don't know how many hunters I've called in, but also too, what's kind of funny about this, there have been times where I have purposely not called because I'm in the middle with a bull to my left and another hunter on the right, and I know there's a very good chance that the hunter did not hear the bull, and I don't want to make a sound because I don't want him to come my direction. But it's really hard because that bull on the left is still screaming a little bit. He's like, "Where did you go?" And I'm like, "Give me a minute. I gotta let that guy get away." So, but also too, then it gets to the point where it's like, you know what? We just got to go. We got to interact on this guy and we got to cover ground and get close. We know he's there. We know that's a bull. The hunter over here just thinks we're a bull. They're going to head to our direction. So let's beat feet, cut the encounter, and get that bull on the ground before this guy comes in and screws it up. So, or it's also too, it's like, oop, man, we're parallel with another group of hunters. We both heard the bull. Let's go. Track shoes on. We're gonna beat those mofos over there. So,
Yeah.
um, so other hunters move towards your calling position. It creates competition and potentially dangerous encounters, especially if it's somebody that's really pissed that they came from a long ways away, only to find a person sitting on a log eating a sandwich and waving at them when they got there. So that maybe was not the best move. I thought it was funny for all five of us to sit down and eat sandwiches when the guy, because he rolled off the top. We called him from the top, and I feel, well, no, I don't feel bad that he was going to have to turn and go back up that. So, okay.
We
You
set
told
up
me of, what's
this,
that?
we set up a couple of Miss Septembers last year and sat back. And the only thing that came in was a hunter.
Yeah,
And we watched him from about 150 yards sneak in on him.
yeah.
It's
Well,
fun to watch him.
they didn't shoot them in September's, did they?
No.
Mhm.
That's the one that always worries me. So,
He got up pretty close, maybe 40, 50 yards, and glassed him, and then you could just see him. He'd
now,
been,
see, that would be me. That if I saw him coming from 100 yards, I would position myself to intercept him before he got close enough to my decoy. And once he got to the part where I wanted him to, I would rock him with a good solid nervous bark.
that'd be good.
But that's just me. Okay, here we go. Other times that calling can hurt post rut exhaustion. So we kind of touched on this before. After the rut, bulls are physically and mentally exhausted, making them largely unresponsive to calls. Also, too, because these larger bulls get into some nasty, nasty thick holes, that their whole purpose is just survival at that point. Try to save enough energy that they have and try to pack on a little bit of extra pounds when going into winter. So, because they lose so much body weight during the rut that at this time they're just focusing on recovery, plus their testosterone levels are really dropping. So, this is again why bugling is not a really effective post rut calling technique, but cow calling can be. So, okay. Controversial aspects. So, I'm glad that you guys had talked about some of the things earlier because now we're going to get into debate topics. So, Mr. Sandy, number 11 is volume wars, aggressive versus subtle. So, should you call aggressively to challenge bulls or use subtle communication to avoid spooking them?
Whichever works.
Okay, read the situation, right, and give them what they're asking for. So, pro-aggressive camp. They're going to say that dominant bulls respond to challenges during peak rut, and aggressive calling works and can actually pull bulls away from cows, and it works well in areas with minimal hunting pressure. The only thing is dominant bulls are only going to respond to challenges when they are in a dominant mindset. If they are not in a dominant mindset, they're not going to respond. And guess what? You can pull bulls away from their cows using the breeding sequence. If you get into an area, you know there's a dominant bull there. If he's not screaming and his herd's not talking, he does not have a bull that's in estrus. Get close, set up, break into your breeding sequence. He's going to run around. He's going to scent check all of his cows, and he's going to be, darn, None of my ladies are an estrus. But that dude over there has one, and there's a 99% chance that I can go over there and kick his butt and breed that cow that's an estrus. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to tuck my cows into a safe space because I already know that all the other bulls in the area are focused on all that commotion over there. So I don't have to worry about them finding my cows. And then I'm going to go over there.
Good segue, because that was second of my three questions. Will the breeding sequence bring in a bull? Because all we've ever brought in have been cows, and so we call it, instead of breeding sequence, we call it a cow party.
And see, that's what's funny because every time we've done the breeding sequence, all we call in are bulls.
Yeah. So maybe we're calling wrong.
It could be. It's hard to say. I don't know. You might just have to record it. So
Yeah. We've never failed to call anything in. We haven't always brought them in close.
yeah,
We've got them to get to the edge of a far clearing to look, and then they don't see anything, and then they'll turn and go back in.
yeah. They're not going to pass that clearing. So
Yeah.
Greg, it sounds like your breeding sequence might be more like a tea party.
Could be. Could be.
a dress up tea party. Nice one, Jason. I like it.
Deeper cow calls.
So, all right. Pro subtle camp. Subtle calling sounds are more natural and less threatening, which I agree 100% with. Soft cow calls work throughout the entire season. I agree wholeheartedly, and less likely to spook elk or attract other hunters. Agree with all of those. The only thing is I'm going to take that caveat, and if I can take it from a subtle calling scenario to an aggressive calling scenario, I am going to do that. And the way I do that is by introducing bulls in a non-threatening manner. Huffs, grunts, whines, raking, different things like that, small little whines that are not threatening. See how that bull responds. If he responds in an aggressive nature, I can be more aggressive and ramp up my aggressiveness to match his. But I'm going to start, you can always start subtle and progress into aggressive, but you can never start aggressive and progress down into subtle. It just doesn't happen. It's a one directional. So,
And by the same token, Mike, it seems to me that if you're doing subtle bull calls and he's getting really aggressive and you continue them and he continues, you're not alienating. You've got a good chance for him to come in to whip your butt.
yeah, and it's also one of those ones where, Larry, it's a good point on that you don't ever want to ramp your aggression level over his aggression. And when I say he's raising his aggression level, you're raising yours. You're still level or slightly below his aggression level. Even though you're controlling the situation, you're giving him the false narrative that he is the dominant and he's going to be in charge. He's the man in charge in this situation. So, all right, frequency debate number 12. How often is too often? So, how frequently should you call in a given area before elk become educated?
Good question.
That's a
Okay.
great question.
Conservative approach. Calling sparingly. Use calling primary for location, then switch to silent hunting. And one bad calling session can ruin an area for a season. Now, these are things that I found in forums. So, and I'm like, interesting. I'm gonna put some of these down because some of these things I'm gonna pull the great big BS card on it. So, most of the time when people talk about educated elk, it's not that the elk are educated, it's that that person is uneducated. That person did not understand the situation, did not understand what was going on, And so they basically ruled it out as, oh, the elk are educated, they're running from me. One bad calling session can ruin an entire area for the season. I don't
I
know.
don't,
I believe I've got a bull downstairs that we called in 5, 6 times that year before we finally killed him with human interaction. A bull or an elk basically is just a 3 day. If you just have one sound, one tone, they have an interaction with a human. They are going to associate that one tone with humans for about 3 days, and then their mind resets. If you're doing all kinds of different pitches and tones and frequencies, they can't lock into it because you are calling naturally. You are vocalizing naturally. Okay, frequent calling mimics natural elk behavior. Consistent calling pressure can eventually break down elk resistance. And elk forget bad experiences if given enough time. Okay, first one, frequent calling mimics natural elk behavior. Not all the time. If the forest is really quiet, you want to be quiet. But also, too, on that caveat is when you're doing the breeding sequence and when you really ramp things up, you are mimicking a natural elk behavior of a hot cow in a herd with a bull, which is a natural elk behavior for September for the rut. That's why we love the breeding sequence so much, because it's the only one time a year that elk behavior happens. Okay, consistent calling pressure can eventually break down elk resistance. So, do you guys remember the story a couple of years ago when we were in Jurassic Park and Brandon was calling? It was like the last day of the season. Brandon was calling. He had been doing the breeding sequence for 45 minutes to an hour, and I just couldn't stand it anymore because I would look back there and he'd be on his phone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I went back there and said, okay, dude, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take over the breeding sequence, but when I motion to you, I want you to act like a bull that came in on my hot cow. And so I started doing the breeding sequence, and about 10 minutes in, I pointed to him and he bugled. And then basically then I worked my way over to him and said, okay, I want you to work your way closer to me. And then once you get about 25 yards apart, we're going to just start mirroring each other. And man, we did that. Now, mind you, he had already been calling for about an hour, hour and 15 minutes before we did this. So now we're an hour and a half in. And man, as soon as we started tandem calling, we got 5 bulls that lit up that had been there all the time. It just all of a sudden just freaking started screaming. And we had bulls coming in from multiple directions because we had Kevin up on one side and Bryce on the other. And they were like, oh, Kevin was like, I just saw legs. There was legs that were just coming. And Bryce was like, man, that dude was coming on a string. And all of a sudden he stopped and he whirled around. And I'm like, yeah, because he got to the little roll and he saw Brandon and I mirroring each other by the creek. We didn't pay attention to where we were actually doing our movements. But tandem calling like that, it adds realism and it adds a scenario that it takes that breeding sequence and it takes it to another level, because now not only is there one bull with hot cow, there are 2 bulls with the hot cow. And it almost gets that FOMO, that fear of missing out. That other bulls are basically like, oop, I really got to get down there. Gonna miss out on this.
So you were basically cow calling and bugling, and then you had Brandon come in with a bugle.
So I was doing the breeding sequence, Jason, where I was the bull that had a hot cow.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah, and then Brandon acted like a bull that came in from the side in to check out this, which happens all the time, which that is a natural elk behavior during the rut. Elk slip in all the time. They know the sounds of a hot cow. They know the sounds of a bull with a hot cow. So that's why you're glunking, your huffs, your grunts, your whines, your raking, and adding that frustration into the huffs, grunts, and whines, because God dang it, she's given all the signs, but she's just not letting me do what I want to do. And man, then you throw that other bull in there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, dude. And it was so funny because I didn't tell Brandon what I was going to do we start bugling, and then I bugle, and he went to answer, and I bugled right over the top of him. Man, he dropped his tube and looked at me. You would think that I took his favorite toy out of the toy box and just pissed him off. So he basically puffed out his chest and was like, "All right, yes, OB, we're going now." So man, did we have fun? We ate that up so much and had such a blast doing it. But we took a quiet forest and made it active. So you can take a quiet forest and you can create an environment, create excitement to where they start bugling on their own. So now, elk forget bad experiences if given enough time. Agree with that 100%. So recovery time needed between calling sessions. It really depends. If you've bumped the elk or they saw you or something, if for some reason they were spooked, I'm going to back out and I'm not going to come back into that spot for 2-3 days. If that calling session, if nothing came in, we didn't have interaction, you know what? We're going to move in that area to another location set up and we're going to do it again. So now, how to read elk's body language and responses, we've talked about that. Basically, if a bull is very, very tense, you can see his shoulders tense and his ears are constantly flipping. That is a bull that is on guard. You have to be very careful. He is very aware of his surroundings. He's very aware of everything. Now, if you can see where a bull is just nice and relaxed and he's just kind of coming in, that dude's relaxed. You don't have to worry. You can get away with more stuff. The bull that's on guard, you have to be a lot more cautious and careful with. You can't get away with as much movement. But a bull that's nice and relaxed, that's maybe not scanning the area so hard, you can get away with more movement. So, okay. Now, this one, traditional versus modern calls, this is more like an external versus diaphragm reads. So, okay. So, diaphragm reads, they're kind of more natural sound producing. You're completely hands free and you have a greater variety of sounds possible with a diaphragm read. External calls, easier for beginners, shorter learning curve, more consistent on sounds, and a lot of times you can get more volume. And I saw this one comment that I thought was hilarious. Did you guys know that you can use external calls while you're eating and drinking?
You're going to gum them up a little bit.
I'm not joking. I saw that as a response in a forum. There was somebody that was, "I'm new to calling. What's the best call to use?" And this person was an advocate for external read calls. And he's like, "Yep." He goes, "I've even been sitting there eating a sandwich and blown on my external call and had a bull respond to me while I'm eating a sandwich." And I'm like, huh,
Dude.
okay. So
The new technique. That's leveling up.
it is. It is. So,
I like the external as something to just change the pitch a little bit. Swap out the diaphragm for an external just to sound like a different elk for a bit.
oh, absolutely. Mixing that up and coming in with a different pitch, different tone is a great option. So, all right, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. I am going to send this out. There is some regional and situational factors, private land versus public land, and kind of some closing discussion points, beginner versus expert calling strategies, if you guys want to dive into those. So, Greg, I know you said you had 3 questions. I know we've hit 2. Do you want to go ahead and ask your third one?
Okay, you get a bull that answers. How long do you stay where you're at before you start moving towards him?
If I have his location pinpointed, I'm on the move immediately because I want to cut the distance as fast as I can.
Yeah. And I guess it depends whether he's 100, 400 yards or.
Exactly. If he's within, if I feel he's close enough to set up where we're at, we're going to set up where we're at. That's 100 yards or less. If there's a chance of me moving, is going to bump him. Now, if he's 400 or 500 yards out, 600 yards out, whatever, Yeah, I want to close that distance as quick as I can. So if I have been pinpointed, then we're going to move. If not, I'm going to stay where I'm at until I have him pinpointed.
Okay.
So, because I want to know where he's at, but also too, if I'm not sure, okay, next time he bugles, is he in the same location or has he moved? What
Yeah.
direction is he moving? If he is on the move, where is he going? Maybe I need to loop around this. Maybe I need to loop around this knob and catch him on the backside instead of following where he's going, following behind him. So it's all these things of quick calcs of where's he going, what is he doing, what time of day, and what do I need to do and how much time do I have?
Okay. Good.
So,
Thank you.
you bet. Larry,
Good job.
thank you.
Yes, that was another good session.
Sandy, comments, questions, concerns?
Curious if you ever got an answer on who won the sheep feet.
If I ever got an answer, or did I ever come up with an
Did
answer?
did you ever announce it?
I never announced it,
Hmm.
but I did the drawing.
Okay, fair enough.
So I just never announced the winner.
Fair enough.
Is it?
What wasn't me then?
Are you sure about that? Because maybe I was waiting to get in here and go, congratulations, Sandy.
Oh well, yeah,
You won the
I do
sheep
need
feet
another
and
pair or
squash
two.
juice and all that. So
I was using those socks this week and putting on some work boots I had on for a while.
yeah,
Oh man, the difference between those and the socks I wore the other day were pretty big.
they are
Much
huge.
more comfortable.
Wait until you get your insoles and then you couple your insoles with those socks. So I will get with Caleb and the crew and see how they want to handle that.
Sounds good.
So I actually did the drawing last night. So just because I was like, Sandy's going to ask me, so I got to do this drawing. And my wife's been after me for 2 weeks if you need to do this. So
Good for her.
perfect. Jason, you got anything?
Question I've got is I will probably there's a good chance I'll be solo this year. Um,
What happened?
any other, well, my buddy, I'm not sure what's going on with him. He's 50-50.
Gotcha.
So
You don't
I'm
need that kind of negativity in your life.
right, exactly.
Yes.
Guys, I've been through probably 4 hunting partners trying to find somebody who will actually
It's
stick and
tough.
commit. It's tough.
It's very trying to find somebody that's willing to put in the time for calling, the trail cameras. Everybody wants the reward. They don't want to put in the work,
Right,
or
right.
they want you to put in the work for their reward. So,
Exactly. Yeah, so just
um,
trying to think about like, is it effective? Have you been very effective in calling and moving solo and actually getting bulls?
absolutely.
Or do I need to have a decoy? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at.
No, actually, so here's the thing when you're solo hunting, decoys can be very, very effective, but the only problem is when you're setting up a decoy and then you're calling and moving, guess what? Well, when you call and move, well, then you have to move back to grab the decoy to move it back up to where you were to call and move. So one of the things that I always did when I was solo hunting, so the Montana decoy, just the rump,
Hmm.
I don't even take the poles. I just cut a slit in it and I have some paracord that I can actually hang it over a branch. So it's popped out, I can just hang it over a branch. So that way, if I need to run back and grab, I'm not dealing with poles, I'm not having to stick poles in. But a majority of the time, I use thick timber and topography to shield my calling to bring that bull past where I want as a shooter.
Okay.
So. So majority of the time I don't mess with the decoy, especially if you are in those thicker timbers, which I know when we were talking and doing the trail cameras, I know you've got some areas that are thicker timber that does have some good elk trails and good sign in it. So
Yeah, definitely.
have you been back up and checked cameras?
I'm going out this weekend,
Okay.
but here, check this out.
Okay. He's a baby 6, July 11th.
Look, he's a 6'5". Yeah,
Okay.
he was
Yep.
just checking it out. So, and the interesting thing is, it's as you predicted, very deep timber, heavy trail kind of stuff. Um, I'm not getting where there's a little bit of open meadow or next to water. I'm not getting as much action. It's in the deep timber, next to water, usually, but definitely deep timber.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went up 4th of July, swapped the cards on the new camera. That one dude's growing very, very nice. So this was July. Actually, the camera stopped taking pictures on June 28th, and he was about a 310, 315 bull with still another month and a half of growth. So, he could pack on another 20, 30 inches. Then we went in and swapped the card in Liz's spot, and I am happy to announce that her perfectly symmetrical 6x6 that she had at 8 yards made it through the winter, and that SOB will not leave my blankety blank camera alone. He likes to do this shot. Or
Great.
so yeah, he fogs up that camera so stinking much and just gives me eyeball shots, and so it's same thing with the other camera location too. And in fact, here is a tip for trail cameras, because both these guys will open up the very bottom part of my trail camera. But the first camera location, they actually rubbed on it enough that it popped the SD card out just a little bit. The SD card didn't fall on the ground, but it just popped it out to where the camera was like, oh, no card. So we started carrying zip ties with us. So because there is a loop on the cameras that we run for a lock, we just zip tie that closed, and then we bring a little pair of nippers in with us. So
Michael, have you ever considered wearing a game camera around your neck and see if the elk come to visit you during hunting season?
no, but as much as they mess with my cameras and it comes from my house and it probably has my house smell on it, I'm not going to wash my camo in non-scent. I'm just going to let my camo just lay on the carpet around the house, and then they'll recognize that smell and they'll be like, oh, we know that smell. Let's go rub on it.
They're going to take a. My daughter wants to get me camo that looks like a game camera,
Really?
because all the elk come up right to the camera. Yeah, see their eyeball, their nose, they breathe all over it.
There is your flugel binder right there, Greg. So, it's here in Boise, there's a camo. It's Moosey's Catch and Release. That his pattern is actually silhouettes of moose in all different colors. So, Greg, just do little trail camera silhouettes in all different colors. Or we can create a Halloween costume that you can go as a trail camera and see how many people go out and try to use that during hunting. So,
Or come up and look at me really close.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Like I said, I will upload this tomorrow. I will send the email out, and I also will send the Google Doc out to everybody. So that way you will have. Do you guys want it as a Google Doc or do you want it as a Word doc? What works best for everybody?
Word.
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 Google. I can do either one.
Okay.
Or
If the masses want Word, we'll do it in Word. I will do a test. I will
Send it
Just-
both ways.
send it both ways.
Yeah, and then we'll see.
Sure.
Not a big deal. Just creates double the work for me. But yeah, let's just send it out both ways. So
Yeah, because you have to retype it all.
no,
yeah.
it's Control C, Control V.
Yeah.
There.
Just wanted to see what how
Just
good-
airdrop it.
Actually, you know what? I think what I can actually do is I think I can actually just take that Google Doc and download it as a PDF. So, and then
Mail it.
just attach the PDF. So
There you go.
then I don't have to control copy, control paste. So,
Yeah, I need
All right,
to.
friend. Have a good evening.
all right, everybody, as always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks on the next Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A. Have a great one, everybody.
Adios, amigos.
Thanks, guys.